Welcome to the Coaching Index podcast. Honest conversations between coaches, practical insights, knowledge, ideas, impact.
I'm really excited for this because we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
But I kind of knew you at the beginning where you were into speed and agility and conditioning and working out that part, but I didn't really. I think you've kind of enhanced that and gone flying with that.
For
So
sure.
what kind of got you into that, and what really pushed you to make this kind of a career choice and a life choice for you?
So it's funny. It's kind of a crazy story because for sure that when you and I were together, I was coaching football. And I think that was the year I took the track job. I don't know if you remember, because we were talking about the school splitting. Do I go to Cedar Valley? Do I stay at Westlake? I kind of wanted to stay here. So where my kids were going to go. I'm like, I live in this boundary, right? And I'm super close. Not that Cedar Valley is that far, but I was thinking of all the things. I'm like, all right, I really want to stay at Westlake. And head coaches got the pick. I don't know if you remember that. Like, you kind of got the pick where you went. If you're a head coach, you got first priority. And you and I are like, we're the bottom guys in the totem pole of the TE department. We're like, dude, if we're not a head coach, we're just getting told where we're going, right? So I remember my wife did not want me to become the head track coach. And I was like, I want to stay. So I took the head track job. She was super mad at me for a week or two. It was pretty funny. She was not happy with that decision because we're busy with kids, coaching football, and then going right from football to track was not her ideal scenario. But so track really helped me a lot. Obviously, I did track in high school, but it was more, hey, let's get in shape for football, right? That's why I did it. Not necessarily a track guy in high school. And then I just fell in love with track. And then just over the last few years, probably a couple of years ago, I just started getting to the point where I'm so busy in life with coaching football, coaching track. My kids are getting older, just stuff with church, things are going on. Like, all right, something has to give. I just don't feel like I can give everybody what they need. Somebody's sacrificing something. And I didn't want that to be my family, right? My kids, right? So I stopped football one year. And it was still kind of crazy. And then I stopped track. And I'm sad because like the last couple of years, and I've really gotten into this speed and the speed training, strength training side. And I ended up kind of we have a speed and strength staff here at Westlake that I get to be a part of now, which is super fun. But as my kids have gotten older, I just started kind of wondering things and questioning a lot of things that we did. And you and I probably did when we were younger, and just like, why are we doing things certain ways? Anyways, just through my kids, through one of the coaches here who was a professional track athlete. His name's Coach Arrhenius. He's an amazing guy, competed overseas for Sweden, and he's worked with a lot of amazing coaches and amazing athletes and how to train them. And it's opened my eyes to some things. And I started listening to a guy like Tony Holler. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, or Tony Villani, Brian Kula, Les Spellman, some of these guys that I just started following, listening to their podcasts, watching their YouTube channels, purchasing some of their training certificates or certifications, and just it's taken me down this rabbit hole that I've fallen in love with, and I just love it. I love helping athletes get faster. What I've loved about this, it's given me the opportunity to step away from coaching the team sports here at Westlake and giving me a little more free time to be with my kids, and I don't have to miss their games, right? They don't have to come, Daddy, you come to my game, and I don't have to tell them, no, I'm going to other kids' games. That's how they view it as. It's super supportive, but sad, obviously. And now I'm also what I love. I'm always a good guy, because everything we do, people, as they see results, they're just happy. I don't have to have those hard, tough conversations that coaches had to deal with. And all too well as a coach, where you're having to make tough decisions and tough calls on playing time and tryout time, and which you guys just went through, right? So everything I do, athletes are improving, they're happy, and they get to see it, and parents get to see that. And it's been super fun being a part of that side. But yeah, my journey has just been crazy the last probably 6-7 years. I've really transitioned from, I want to be a head football coach. That was the dream. That was the goal. That was the path to, I'm good. I love just working with all these different teams and individuals. And what's funny is that most of my athletes and teams I work with are soccer teams and athletes. It's kind of interesting how that's worked out. Maybe part of it is just that's where my daughter's at. My nephews they actually just made it onto RSLs. They're going to be freshmen next year, so they're going to be RSL. They're twins, freaking awesome. And been able to work with some college athletes who are currently playing at BYU, Utah, Snow, Slick, other areas. I've had the chance to work with a couple of them, and so it's been super fun. And I love this. I really do. It's like my new passion. So it's been super fun for me.
That's where I think I really zoned in to see your change in that speed and agility stuff was when you did the stuff with Lucy Kessler.
Yeah.
And I was like, that showed me, and I used that as an example to some of my athletes of because there always used to be that common misconception of like that doesn't matter, like speed and agility doesn't matter, stretching recovery doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Like you're born fast. You're not, you can't train that kind of
Yes.
thing. You can't train those motor skills. And so when I saw you do with the stuff with Lucy, I was like showing my girls and my team be like, look, this is really important. You've got D1 athletes, you've got professional athletes doing this. And I don't think many teams and players and parents really understand the importance of that. So I want to share your Westlake stuff, and I'll share it on the podcast and the links to it
Yeah.
to show the things you've been doing. But I'm really interested in your day to day. So what it looks like, what you do with specific athletes, and what's important to high school athletes. We can get to maybe younger athletes because obviously your kids were younger and you decided
Mhm.
to do it with those guys. But what does it look like with high school athletes? What do you do day to day with those guys to help them maybe get faster, stronger, and more sports specific, like based for them?
Yeah, it's funny what you say that because I think I was like that a long time ago too. And hey, you're either fast or you're not. Like that's just what it came down to, right? Even as my first computer, the track coach, I was like, well, we don't have these super fast guys. Let's focus on 400 runners, maybe mid distance. And I know I've changed my tune of tongue because speed is a skill that you can learn for sure. Everybody can get faster, and the goal is let's raise everybody's floor. If we raise your floor, your ceiling goes with it too, right? And so just every day that we start with kind of just the basics with our athletes in our class. The first, speed is our priority. One of the things I love from Tony Holler is who I learned it from. I said speed is the tide that lifts all boats. So we told all our athletes beginning last year when we really went big with this speed and strength staff is, hey, speed will not be sacrificed. If something hurts our speed, we're cutting that out. We can't do that. So we started off with just some basic activation work, which this could be anything. This could, stalker has their open the gates, close the gates, like your hamstring scoops, some high knee pulls. There's just so many things you can do. 90s. It's limitless the possibilities of things you can do just to kind of start to warm your body up, just your dynamic warm ups, right? We don't want to do static stretching to start because that's actually going to kind of relax your body. It's not priming you for those higher outputs or, being able to jump and be explosive and fast. So that we wouldn't do static stretching. We do more dynamic warm ups, and then we move into just some speed drills. And kind of the speed drills you do kind of just depends on what your focus is. Everything you're doing is just kind of like you're just taking steps that are going to build you to going as fast and as hard as you possibly can, right? So we'll start with some marches or some A skips or some high knees. I know some people in the speed community don't love some of that stuff, but I'm just big on, hey, let's do some of the front side mechanics. Again, I've gotten a lot of this from the Tony Hollers, the Les Spellmans, the Brian Kulas, the Tony Villani's, these guys that I've fallen in love with. And if they ever hear this, thank you. I don't know if they'll ever hear this, but I've got to say thank you to those guys because they've been amazing. And that's where I've gotten some of my certifications and stuff through the things that they've put out there. But you're just trying to build your body to go from 0 to 100, right? And these guys are high school athletes are incredible. So we just do a couple things, maybe give them one or two things to focus on with each drill. If they're really at the beginning of the year, we might do a drill 2 or 3, maybe 4 times just to help them understand how we want it to look. And then we just understand, hey, they're going to get better over time. They don't have to be perfect day one. We're just trying to progress and get better. And then eventually we're just building through some of these drills into our max sprint. So at the end of the day, speed kills. That's our philosophy. That's what we think. And when you think about all the athletes you've trained in soccer, I am pretty confident to say that all of them, if not the majority of your best athletes, the thing they have in common is they were all just fast. They were all fast, explosive athletes. And that's how most of us are. So to get fast, you got to sprint. You have to sprint as fast as you can. You have to give time to recover so your body can recover and be able to produce those max level outputs a second or third or fourth time. And the big thing to remember with everybody is conditioning is not speed training. And I think that's something I messed up a lot of growing up and a lot in my early years as a coach. And I look back at some of those athletes that I trained and then, man, sorry to them. I really do feel bad for some of the things I did because sometimes the goal is, hey, let's get them tired, let's get them stored. Like, you just, for some reason in my head growing up, and the things maybe I taught, the things I did, we just thought that's what made athletes better. And that's just, I've learned that's not really the case. You have to be really intentional in what you're doing and have a plan. And you have to understand what it is you're trying to get from each drill. If I want somebody to be faster, at the end of the day, I got to get 2 or 3 max effort sprints as fast as I can. I'm a big believer in timing them. Again, thanks to a lot of these guys that I mentioned, like Tony Holler. He's a big believer in, if you're not timing, you're not sprinting. Why? Because when you time them, there's 2 things that happen. One, kids are just going to go faster. So we have our laser timers out there when we sprint, or we're at least racing against somebody just to go as fast as possible, because kids are going to go faster there. And the second thing it does for them, on top of making sure they're running as fast as they possibly can, when you bring out a timing system or you're racing, man, these kids, it's fun. It makes it fun now. I can't tell you how many times in some of my speed training sessions, especially with younger kids, I'll have my laser timer, and that's all they want to do. They just want to keep running through it as much as they can. And if you and I were going to go out there and say, hey, we're going to go run 10, 50-yard sprints, what's everyone? Oh my gosh, that sucks, right? That's what all these kids are going to do. But you bring a timer out, man, they just have so much fun and they go crazy. And so those are the 2 reasons why we want to time everything, to kind of simplify it. Is they're going to go faster, and it just makes it fun. And every day you can kind of check yourself. It's immediate feedback for the kids, but also for you as a coach. Is what I'm doing making them better? Are they getting faster? If they're not, I got to look at something. I got to change something. There could be so many reasons. Obviously, there's some outliers. Maybe they didn't sleep well. Maybe they didn't eat anything for lunch, or their head's not in it because they're high school kids. It's school and things like that. So you got to understand there's other factors that play a role there. But at the end of the day, our job as speed and strength coaches is making sure you're faster and stronger than you were the day before or the week before. And speed is going to grows on trees, what they say. So it's going to take some time, get a little slower. But if our slowest sprints can be faster, like I said, raise the floor, they're going to be a better athlete. So when I'm not at 100%, if I can run 15 miles per hour now, not 100%, but next week I can run 15.5 miles per hour and I'm not 100%, I'm better for that, right? I'm already a better athlete than I was before, and that's kind of the goal there.
At first, I was worried because I thought you were challenging me to a sprint, and I was like, no, that would not end well. You would,
dude. You and I, no way, man. I'm so slow now. My goal is I just got to be faster and stronger than my kids. We'll go out and race. And I'm like my own personal kids, So I got a 7th grader. He just finished 7th grade. He's my oldest. He's getting close, but I'm like, dude, you will never be faster or stronger than me. That's the goal. But I need a couple of minutes to warm up, stuff.
We have a parent corner on the coaching index, and it talks a lot about some of these specific things that parents don't understand, like sideline behavior, understanding multi-sport versus specialization and stuff like that. But a big part of it that I don't have a experience on that you do is parents don't understand what their kid needs to do at a younger age for speed and agility, for strength training, because there's always that worry like, hey, I don't want to put them under a bar. I don't want them to doing this stuff because they're still growing. What does that look like for this? Let's say we've talked about the high school athlete. What does this look like for, let's say, a youth athlete, maybe growing from 8 to 12-year-olds, or even but just a little bit after that, going into high school? What should that look like for someone in sports, in athletics? What should they be lifting? Should they not be lifting? Should they be doing speed training? What does that look like for them?
Oh, for sure. Great question. And yeah, with my own kids, I had my 7-year-old daughter out there this morning doing stuff with us. So she was 6 last year. So yeah, don't be afraid of it. Don't let kids be kids. One of the best things, let them go to the park, let them get on the monkey bars, let them jump, run around, jumping, bounding, playing tag. All these things are going to be great for kids. Just let them be kids. Kids naturally will get better. You want to do a little more games with them, with the kids. Like when I have my younger teams or younger athletes that I work with, and I got to remember this sometimes with my daughter. I feel bad for her. I try to apologize to her all the time. So I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm too hard on you because I try a lot of things out on her. She's kind of like my little guinea pig, her and myself. But little games where you set up a little obstacle course, and one at a time they're going through this little obstacle course, or you're just doing 2-on-2 sprints. Again, it's all game work. So it's just more, if you were to watch my speed sessions with those younger teams, I'm trying to find more competition type games than maybe just like you brought up Lucy Kessler. She's on this. Lucy, you're awesome. super excited that I had the opportunity to work with her in some ways. With her, obviously, we're not going to do some of those games that those younger kids were going to do because she's higher level athlete. She understands things, the timing systems, the laser timers. That's going to do enough to help push her and motivate her. And she's already pushed, motivated as much as she needs to be. Yeah, those kids, I look on YouTube or on Instagram. I follow a lot of people that put out these cool games that I get to watch. I'm like, oh, that's a good game. Or sometimes I think what would be a fun game to just get kids going as fast and as hard as they can. That's really the end of the day. And as far as the weight room, yeah, like first start with your body weight. If you can't control your body weight, I get that. Yeah, don't put your kid under a bar if he can't even do a body weight squat. That's not going to help anybody. But the moment they can do some of their own body weight squats and push-ups, some just basic movements, and they understand the cues, don't be afraid of weights. Don't be afraid of weight training, because being stronger is going to help in so many ways. You're going to produce more force when you're running, which is going to help you be faster or more explosive. That acceleration, your ability to change direction, a lot of that is, are my muscles, my ligaments, are they strong enough? Can I perform those movements well and correctly? And so don't be afraid of it. Obviously, you have to layer it and step by step. You got to walk before you can run, like everyone always talks about. So yeah, I'm not going to take my 10-year-old and, hey, let's go max out on deadlift the first day you get in the weight room. That would be something we do. But we put on some camps for these younger kids over the last few years. We weren't able to do it this year just with our schedules. But yeah, we start off with a lot of the basic movement patterns. We skip, we jump, we sprint, right? Keep it pretty simple with those little kids because they're going to work hard. And then when we test how high they can jump, they're having fun. They love it. They love getting on our jump mats and seeing how high their vertical is. And hey, they're going as hard as they can. And then we transition to the weight room after that. After you do the sprinting and the jumping, their body's primed and ready for some weight training. And it's just very basic. Keep it super light. And again, and we just watch as coaches, watch as parents. If they can't do it with proper technique, their back's arching, we start with goblet squats, we're not going to go to a bar first. We're going to start with body weight squats and goblet squats. And then if they've mastered that and you're like, hey, we're almost running out of big dumbbells, they're getting too strong for that. Yeah, go to some bars, grab a back squat, do a front squat. And it's going to progress for sure. Don't rush them into it, but don't be afraid of it. It would be my biggest suggestion there. Let them get stronger. But you could do that in some fun ways. You can find fun ways to do it and track what they're doing. Write down how much they're lifting or how many reps they got if it's body weight. If you don't have a weight room, they'll be fine. You can do some good things with body weight. You can put a backpack on, if you want to get a little more weight there. But they do need to be stronger. Athletes, the stronger, faster, more explosive athletes are going to go further, and they're going to be less prone to injury as well, right? Just because their body can handle those loads a little better. And it's just doing it the right way. Yeah.
You really led into my next part was going to be injury prevention, because people get confused of like, my kid will do this and will get injured. I think there's a huge emphasis now on people don't realize that band work and different things can help with knee injuries in female athletes, and just especially just any injuries in any athlete. How much of a component is that in your day-to-day when you work with your athletes? Do you talk about injury prevention and how these things like strengthening a muscle can help this other muscle? What does that look like with injury prevention working with your athletes at your school?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we talk about that a lot. We talk about the importance of rest, recovery, sleeping, hydration. Those are all going to play a big role in that as well, right? Sometimes some of these kids are just so busy. And so you got to find a good balance, because sometimes we can overtrain too. Like we really can. That's something parents got to remember, is got to let kids be kids. But a big part aside from the weight room, rest, recovery, hydration, sleep, those are going to be some of your best friends. They really will be. You need to get enough sleep every night. If you're only getting 5 hours of sleep, your risk of injury is going up. It just 100% is. And we've shared some articles with our athletes, and we expect them to, in our classes at the high school level, we use Canvas, right? And so they'll put articles on Canvas, and they got to answer a quiz, or they got to write a response, and they got to do some self-reflection. How much sleep am I getting? How much water am I drinking? How much am I resting? How many times am I going to the gym outside of school? Because sometimes like, hey, if you're going to Boston every day and you're lifting with us and you have your club soccer practice and you're practicing with the high school team here, dude, we got to cut something out. That's a lot for you. But definitely our injury prevention, it's if you're jumping as fast, as high as you can and as far as you can, you're sprinting as fast as you can, and you're lifting heavy, Those are all things that are going to help you for sure. And if you progress them the right way, all of those are just going to help you be stronger and withstand some of those loads and those heavy loads that you're taking on. But you got to understand what your athletes are doing. And this is what I've been talking to a lot of parents and talking to even my wife about a little bit, like with our daughter specifically, who's getting to those older ages, and she's a U12 soccer athlete now. Is we don't want to run into the ground, you know. Conditioning, there's a time and place for conditioning for sure, but if I want to condition them on Monday before practice, and then they go practice, and then I want to go to the weight room, those are all good things, right? All good things, but all back to back to back, you're going to get them injured. So those are the things we talk to our athletes about, is understanding what's your priority for the day or for that session, and understanding how to manage that load within your work week. That's important. Yeah, band work. We do band TKEs are a big staple for us. We love terminal knee extension. But TKE is just kind of the shorter term, easier to say that. But we have athletes in that all the time, so we talk about how that's going to strengthen their knees, especially for our female athletes and our female soccer players. We're doing that because that's a complementary lift to one of our heavier lifts. You know, if we're jumping or we're squatting, we love adding those band TKEs just to help athletes strengthen that specific area, because we want to make sure our knees are stronger, but also training them how to change direction or how foot placement should be is important as well. That's what we do with some of my speed training. That's kind of my thing. I talk to athletes a lot and say, let's learn where our foot needs to go, because if it goes too far or outside that, or I'm planting wrong and I'm turning wrong, I'm exposing that area, specifically knee, to a potential injury. Or if it gets hit in a certain position, it's more compromised, right? But yeah, if you can be more mobile and stronger, it can withstand a lot more, as long as you're not overdoing it, because we can be too hard on these athletes a lot of times.
Yeah, we have an article about, this is something I'm really passionate about, is multi-sport versus specialization at a younger age, and how those movements specifically help individual players. And so someone with your background, like, I'd love to ask you this question, like, should young athletes be playing multiple sports, or do you think it's good for them to do sport-specific movements at that younger age? What does that look like in your opinion, for those younger athletes? My opinion is, I think, I love when my players play other sports. I joked around with Coach Kavika at Cedar Valley, and he's like, soccer players make the best basketball players because they work really, really hard. He's like, then we can develop the technical stuff, but they work really, really hard on the court, and so it just translates. Obviously, track and field relates to soccer too. But what's your opinion on the multi-sport versus the specialization, especially at a young age, and building those skills that they don't get in isolated environments?
Yeah, no, big fan, big believer in that. Obviously, I get some people can't afford it. There's different, everyone's in different circumstances, but in the perfect world, yeah, everybody should be playing multi-sports, because it's going to you're going to get different things from every sport. Right? Even tennis, like your ability to change direction and react, that's important. That's going to be helpful for you. So like with my kids, I try to push into multiple sports. My oldest daughter is the one who does it the most. She does softball, soccer, and basketball. Obviously, soccer is her main sport, so she does club soccer, and then we just find some rec sports that we feel like we can kind of afford for her to play. Because I like that, like in basketball, her ability to shuffle her feet ladder, there's a little more, it's a smaller confined space. So she's going to have to shuffle her feet a little differently on the basketball court than she would on a soccer field. But I know it's going to help her on the soccer field, because her ability to change direction is going to improve, and her ability to track the ball and some hand-eye coordination, all that's going to be important and helpful for her there. And same with the softball. So I'm a big fan of it, because you just learn things from other sports, but you also get to have fun doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Sometimes you can lose some of the fun. It keeps you more fresh and ready to play your sport. That's what I love as a track coach. I was always pitching that to like our football players and everybody else. And I know Corner Canyon was big on making sure their athletes did multiple sports. And that's one of the things that, talking to their coach, he loved, is by the time the season started, and this is for his football team, he felt like they were still very hungry and fresh, versus if they just did football the entire time, from spring, by the time you got to July, maybe early August, kids are maybe a little more burnt out and not as excited to go train every day, which is a big thing. So a big fan just because of that reason. I do think it will help with some injury prevention as well, because you're not doing the same movements over and over again. So you're kind of cross training. The pounding your body's taking is just different, right? My knees are going to react differently to some of the skills I'm going to do on a football field than on a soccer field, and so on. So a big fan of it. But at the end of the day, like if you can't afford it, I will say one thing, just be wary of one thing I'm wary of when everyone goes, oh, this is soccer specific strength training, or this is soccer specific speed training. Like I get a little weary of that sometimes. Like, well, like what are you doing there in your strength training or speed training that wouldn't help improve the other sport? Like that, you all need to be faster and stronger. So there's some of that specific stuff that I think maybe gets overblown with some people. And I think some people like to say that just so people want to pay them money to do things. Because I think, yeah, soccer has specific skills that you need to perform well. But as far as the athletic profile, anything they do, speed wise, strength wise, is going to help make them better. I'm not going to train at the high school level. I'm not going to train your soccer player a ton different than how I'm going to train the basketball player, because we're all just trying to build some general strength and get a little stronger. Obviously, some of the auxiliaries can look a little different depending on those muscles that they're going to use more of. When you get to higher levels, they'll get a little more specific with some things there. But for us younger kids, high school kids, just stay away from. I feel like you should stay away from somebody who's just saying, "Oh, this is just specific to this sport." I think these kids need to be more general. They need to just be stronger. They just need to be faster. And if you're just doing those same movements over and over again, that's what causes those injuries, because you're not letting them rest, which is one of those pillars to being a better athlete. That rest, recovery, sleep, hydration, and so that's something I will say there. Hopefully, it doesn't make anybody mad, but that's something we talk about all the time. Some of us coaches, and I hear from a lot of the coaches I follow on social media the same way. They're like, "Hey, don't fall for that. Oh, this is soccer specific. This is basketball specific. This is volleyball specific." No, these kids are so young; they don't need that specific training. They just need to be jump high, jump far, run fast, lift heavy as they get older, right? You don't want to have that 6-year-old lifting that's maxing out deadlifts right away. So they get better, but those are the keys there.
Yeah, I've seen that exact thing that you talked about with they saying, hey, I see it in basketball a lot. I follow a lot of people that talk about different specific basketball movements, and they call it basketball specific training, and they're doing some lateral stuff because they're always moving laterally, and I'm like, well, in soccer you move laterally also. And so it makes sense. I love what you said there. Like, don't get tricked by that, because it's kind of an all-round thing. Strength and conditioning is an all-round topic and thing that can help people. So on that note, going into this, the reason we started these podcasts and talking to people is to help those coaches that are just coming into the game, maybe understanding these scary things. Like, this could be a scary topic. But for a coach that's coming into the game, what can they do? What's something minimum that they could do with their team that will help their players in the strength and conditioning without having to be an expert about it? Maybe there's one thing that you live by and you're like, every coach should do this. Maybe it's something really small that they can change or that they can integrate to their practices or their sessions. Is there anything that you have that's really small?
Yeah, really small is, again, going back to that phrase that I mentioned earlier from Tony Holler, speed is the tide, or I might not have said this earlier, maybe it was just in my head, but speed is the tide that lifts all boats. It's something I've learned from Tony Holler. So to me, if you're a young coach, you're just starting out with these kids, you want them fast. And if you look at all the athletes you train and you talk about, this was my best player, she was my best player, he's my best player, you take your top 10, 15, 20 best players, what did they all have in common? And again, I would come back to argue that speed was probably the main thing they all had in common. They were all fast. If I ask you to describe your best players ever, I've never met anybody yet who's left speed out. So everything you do needs to have a reason. And every time you train athletes, what's the purpose behind it? Right? If it is conditioning, one of the big things I hear a lot, and I get it, conditioning is important for sure, but just making somebody tired doesn't mean they got better. Anybody can make an athlete tired. I get that my 7-year-old daughter could put Coach Hart through a workout. You'd be tired after. She probably could do some things that you'd be tired, but did you really get better? What is your purpose behind what you're doing? Just ask yourself, am I hurting their speed? Number one. If I am, maybe I need to look at something different. Number two, what's the purpose? For example, if it is, I want to build their aerobic capacity, well, what is their current max aerobic speed? Right? That's something you'd ask yourself. That's what I ask myself with what I do with my daughter. Her just going around running a mile, is that really moving the needle for her? Because when I was doing her max aerobic speed, we took 2 or 3 months. This is early on when I was doing things. She ran a mile multiple times that week. To her max aerobic speed, never really changed much. Why? Because we weren't pushing her enough. And maybe that's my fault too, but understand how to measure everything you do. Right? If it's conditioning, what's going to improve my max aerobic speed? In soccer, if the average speed that they're playing at with their team, I think what I remember with my research, the high school level, it's like 15 miles per hour is the average speed for game moments that impact the game or game defining plays. So if I'm constantly training below 15 miles per hour, am I helping my athlete be better and prepare for that game? I remember going back, now this is kind of a long answer question, but I remember one of the things that got into all of this was I coached football for a long time, summer conditioning, right? We hit conditioning so hard. We'd come to game one and guys are still tired. And I'm not sure if you've heard this or other people have heard this, but I've heard it a lot. Oh, they're not in game shape yet. Like game one, they just need to get in game shape. They need to get in game shape. And in my head, part of the question I asked myself over the last few years is like, well, then what did we do all summer? Didn't we get in shape? You know what I mean? Like, weren't we in shape? But what was our problem? What did we miss? Well, guess what? We weren't really preparing these athletes for those demands of the competition, right? If I go out and I run a 6-minute mile, to me, that's actually a pretty good mile time, especially for me. Right? I think a high school girl running a 6-minute mile, that's good. And this is what I tell my high school athletes all the time, but you're only running at 10 miles per hour. So if that's the only thing you're doing to train to get in shape, and then you go play in a soccer game, and there are moments where you need to be at 15 plus miles per hour, our body is impressive, right? But it's going to adapt to the stress we put on it. So if I'm constantly training here at 10 miles per hour, running those 6-minute miles over and over and over again, that's good. But come to the game, guess what? You're going to be tired. Not that you're necessarily out of shape, but I'm not in game shape, right? That's what we talk about with athletes. And that's what I learned from my mistake that I made as a football coach so many times, was focusing so much on these gassers. But I guess what? If I watch and I measure their time and their speed they're running at, most of these guys are probably 10 miles an hour and under by the second or third rep. But in the game, I want them at 17, 18, 19 miles per hour. So again, just kind of make sure you understand what your purpose is behind that drill or that training component. If I want to speed train, let's do speed. And speed is going to look very different. It's going to be resting. It's going to be recovering. Sometimes it can almost look lazy to somebody from the outside watching because they just run one 30, 40-yard sprint and then they're resting, 3 to 4 minutes. But that's how it looks like. But you can talk to them. You can still get better mentally in doing that. And then when it's conditioning, okay, don't just run them to be tired. Have a purpose. What am I trying to do? Measure their max aerobic speed. And you can Google ways to do that. You can ChatGPT ways to do that. But you should know what your max aerobic speed of your athletes are. And after you do some conditioning every couple of weeks, retest them. Right? Did we get better? If we didn't, okay, that conditioning wasn't serving its purpose. They just got tired. They didn't get better. Right? And the demand of the sport is going to determine how you want to train them. And I think with a lot of mistakes I see a lot of us younger coaches make when we first get into it is we just train the way we were trained. And I think we're in a very football heavy culture here in America. You might see things differently because you didn't grow up here. But I think we just have this, let's make them mentally tough. Let's drive them to the ground. Let's just run them to the ground. And I was talking to a soccer coach who went over somewhere to, I can't remember if it was England or Spain. And he was watching them train their younger kids. And after a 90-minute practice, they went home. Say, wait, aren't they going to condition? He's like, dude, we just did 90-minute practice. That was conditioning. Like, they ran them. If they're not running enough in your practice, he's like, maybe you should rethink your practice. And it just made me laugh. And I heard that. I'm like, that was always my thought process too. Like after practice, let's just condition. Let's just run them to the ground. But measure things, because is that preparing athletes for the demands of the sport? Is that speed or that distance really going to improve them? And that's something I made a mistake on growing up that I wish I would have known from a younger point. And so again, just to kind of simplify, because I know I talked a lot, was, hey, speed, everything comes back to speed. If you're hurting their speed, you need to rethink things because that's not going to make them better. You know, you and I are playing soccer. If you run 20 miles an hour and I run 15 miles per hour during that game, I don't care what, I might have a better mile time than you, but if I'm trying to keep up with you running 17, 18 miles per hour, you could run 17 miles per hour and be beating me. And you're only at what, 70, 80% of your max speed. And I'm at 100+% of my max speed, right? Trying to keep up. I'm going to get tired faster than you are. I just am. So remember, speed is important. You want to raise the ceiling on speed because it's just going to make everything easier. It really will. 20-mile-per-hour runner who runs at 17 miles per hour is not as gassed as the 16-mile-per-hour runner running 15 miles per hour. You know, that guy is going to be at a higher percentage of his max speed. He's just going to get tired faster because his body can't withstand that max. What's the word I'm looking for? Just lost my train of thought there with that, but he just can't keep up because your speed reserve's gone. And again, when I want to get condition the right way. You know, understand I want to prepare them for the game and the demands of the sport, and I want to have a purpose behind everything I do. So that's just kind of the summary there. I know I just rambled on. Sorry, dude.
No,
But
don't. I was actually so deep in thought when you were talking, purely out of the fact that my coaching belief and everything why I started this is everything has to be game like. Every repetition you do
yes,
has to be game like.
yeah,
Everything you do has to relate to the game in some way. And so when you're talking about it and you're talking the fact that just, we're around the same age. So we
yeah,
grew up the same kind of thing. And so it's like you run, run, run. I remember my pre-seasons in college was run, run. You're going to be fit. You're going to run this. You're going to do miles at this time. You're going to do the beat test. You're going to do all of this. And then we always wonder like why we can't last 90 minutes. I had this conversation with a parent the other day, and even my new team. So this year I'm taking a U15 team that my wife took a couple of years before, and she's done a great job with them. And the first thing that my wife said to them, the girls, because at the end of every practice, she would do some kind of cardio, some kind of running, some kind of fitness, like most coaches do. And Addie told them, my wife told them, she's like, Mitchell doesn't do that. And they were super excited. And I'm like, why are they so excited? So I had to explain in my parent meeting and to the players, like, this is my philosophy. I was like, I believe in something called periodization, and periodization is the reps that we get in practice have to be game like, but I need them at 100% in those
yes,
repetitions. So if we're doing a possession drill or we're doing something that we're playing a game, how long can I go until they can't give me 100% anymore? Because if they can't give me 100%, then things are going to start to fall. Their technical ability is going to start to hurt. The communication, they're tired. It's going to look lazy. So with the periodization, it's making them. So we might go for a 6-minute game at 100% speed, and that's their conditioning. And they don't realize that at that point they're doing the conditioning in the practice. Because exactly like you said, we do the preseason, we go through everything, and we're like, okay, we need them to be fit. They're going to be really fit. We've done so much running. And then they go into a game and you're like, why are you not running? Like, we've done
yeah,
this. But we haven't had those repetitions that we had.
yeah,
We didn't do those game-like things. We didn't run for 90 minutes. We run for 10 minutes. We did full-out speed. And so that to me, when you said everything there, reinforced everything that I'm doing and that coaches should know in understanding what fitness looks like. Because getting on the line at the end of the practice and running sprints can help. It's going to help a little bit, but it's not going to build the overall picture and the overall athlete. So my last kind of question for you, because this has been amazing, and
yeah.
I've learned so much, and I think people will too. Is what is the difference between strength and speed, and probably which one is more important? Because I always hear like, hey, I need to get in the gym. I need to get in the gym because it's going to make me real strong, and it's going to make me, it's going to really, really help me at soccer. And I'm like, okay, but what about speed? You can be really strong, but the person will run past you. Same thing with speed. I want to work on speed, but now what happens? I got to the ball first. I got this, but now what? Because of the strength part. What for you is more important? Not necessarily maybe what's more important, but maybe the difference of why they are important between strength and speed.
No, for sure. And I think it's a great question. I even made I'll just go back and find. I try to make this pyramid of success, or Coach Anderson's pyramid of success, and it all kind of funneled to speed. So as far as if is speed more important, yes, I think in a way, but also it's hard to be really fast and maximize your speed if you're also not strong, right? Like they complement each other so well. They really do. I really believe that. And so I think they both go hand in hand. But I think the problem some people have in the weight room is sometimes the things you do in the weight room, they can make you bigger and stronger, but they can also make you slower and less mobile, if that makes sense. And so you got to make sure you're doing it the right ways. The caution I would give to people there is make sure everything complements your speed. So to me, everything that's what it goes back to. Is it improving my speed? Yes or no? If it's not, I got to rethink how I'm doing this. So maybe some smaller reps, more explosiveness in the weight room. Everything should be about explosive and get stronger. Not necessarily, I don't need them to necessarily bulk up a ton. And it could depend on your sport a little bit, right? Maybe the offensive lineman in football might look a little different from the things they might prioritize in the weight room versus your, wing in soccer or your center back in soccer. There's going to be a little different things that they're going to need. But they definitely got to go hand in hand. Speed priority number one. That's what I would say, just to kind of simplify it and make sure if what I'm doing is not improving the speed, I got to fix it. But definitely getting in the weight room is going to help a ton. And you want to make sure you're doing your squats. We're big into what's called contrast training here at Westlake. And so we're big on let's lift heavy and let's be explosive. So that means is I'm going to do a back squat and I'm going to go heavy with my back squat. I might do 4 sets of 3 back squat, right? Or something like that. But I'm trying to go heavy. I'm trying to push the needle, and we're measuring things. And right after I do my back squat, I'm going to go in and do some explosive jumps. So I'm going to go from a heavy, super heavy lift to something very explosive. And that's kind of what our contrast training method is like at Westlake. And we've seen a lot of great results with that, with athletes being able to jump higher and further. In a perfect world, if money's not an issue, you can buy these velocity trackers for bars, and you can do things to see, hey, our guy's really pushing hard. It's just great because it's great feedback for the athlete when they're lifting. If I'm lifting this bar, hey, we want you to lift it at 1 meter per second. If it's not there, we're not generating the speed that we want. So let's change that up a little bit. So, but when you don't have that, like you and I are teachers, we don't have a ton of money for everything, right? And I know a lot of parents are paying a ton of money for sports already, but lifting heavy is going to be important. You want to be strong. It's going to help you produce more force and be able to take those blows and fight back in your sport. So weight room important, but only if you can make sure you're complementing your speed and not hurting your speed. I guess that's how I would just summarize that.
I love it. 2 things, the 2 words I think I've taken from this conversation that has made me feel good as a coach, because it's everything I preach and everything I believe in, is 1, it has to have a purpose, and 2, it has to be fun. I didn't think about the fun part with strength and conditioning and speed until you mentioned it, because it's the same thing with players understanding a concept in soccer or learning a drill or exercise or a technical thing, is that if it's not fun, they're not going to remember it and they're not going to want to do it again. So when you said about the fitness and making that fun, the activities you do, making them fun, really resonated with me, because like you said, it has a purpose, but then also they treat it like a game and a competitive environment. And I think that's what our kids need. So I think this has been absolutely amazing. I know you kind of answered this, but we always ask it at the end. I asked it with last one with Josh, but like I said, we alluded it and you answered it. But there's one thing that anyone listening to this, you would want to give them advice on speed or something that could help them. What would it be? Just one thing.
Yeah. One thing, kind of just going back to what we said, time your sprints, make it fun. Make it fun. Compete. Think of some fun games to play. But if you are timing things and you're making it fun, kids are going to want to come back, like you talked about, right? And just remember, if they leave hungry, they're going to want to come back for more, right? If we just kill them into the ground every day and I just make you tired and exhausted every single day and it's not fun, they're just not going to want to put that extra work in. They're not going to want to come back. And that's what kids are going to slowly just stop playing their sport. So we want the kids to keep coming back. So specifically for speed, time it. If you're not timing things, you're never going to know if you're improving or what. You need feedback as a coach as well, right? Just as much as the kids need feedback. So time it. See if what you're doing is working. If it's not, be willing to change. And then just find ways to make it fun. Find competitive games. You can do so many things that kids are just going to love. And you and I have been a part of it. There's certain drills or certain things where kids just don't ever want to stop. We like that. When we have to make them stop, that's good as a coach. If they want to give up, maybe we got to rethink something, right? If they want to just be done, like, coach, can we be done yet? That's probably not the best thing a coach wants to hear. So those are the two biggest things. If you're a coach, it's something I made a mistake of before was let's kill them. Let's crush them. Especially day one sometimes. Let's kill them. Let's crush them. Let's send a message from day one. I'm like, oh, what was I doing? I missed out on a lot of opportunities, especially the track coach. Like, dude, track is hard. There's a lot of just running. I should have made it more fun, and kids would have wanted to stay, and more kids would have wanted to join than what I was doing to them before. So those are the two biggest things. And time it. You get feedback. Kids get feedback. Find ways to make it fun. You're going to have more fun if the kids are having more fun. You're going to end practice excited to come back the next day. Practices can be just as fun. Well, maybe not just as fun as games, but they can get pretty close. I know games are like the end all be all. We all love that as competitors. You and I are probably the same. Nothing beats, for me, that Friday night light feeling for a football coach here in America, in Utah. High school Friday night light football is just amazing. But practice can still be amazing. It could be fun. It could be a great experience. And then we're not going to see kids dropping off.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Coaches Conversations, presented by the Coaching Index. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a coach, parent, or player who may benefit from it. For more coaching insights, resources, articles, and future conversations, follow us on Instagram at the Coaching Index. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making an impact.